We are now only 1 week from Election Day, and the race has tightened. So let's just dive in. This will be rambly. This is the map of where we currently are with polling. The unfortunate thing is that all three of the lean Biden states from last week, Arizona, Florida, and North Carolina, are now toss-up states. So there are 7 toss-up states. Not great. It is the case that Biden is leading in 5 of the 7 toss-up states, so that's something. And his lead in those states is equal to or larger than Trump's lead in the 2 toss-up states he's leading, which are Texas and Ohio. So there's also that. But a little bit of the buffer that Biden had is not as strong anymore. That's just where we are. And so what we're looking at now is the possibility that Trump, let's say, wins all of the toss-up states, which, being toss-ups, they can go either way. So let's say he does that. He only then needs 1 more state to win, and the state that is closest to that happening would be Pennsylvania. Now, but Pennsylvania is still likely Biden, but his lead in Pennsylvania is at 5.3, which is pretty close to the cutoff to being a lean state rather than a likely state. So that would be the one that would, at this point, would be most vulnerable. Biden has maintained the lead in Pennsylvania, but it has sort of fluctuated over time. In the past 2 to 3 weeks, it has been going down. Still, at this point, likely Biden, but that is the one that appears to be where, if Trump wins all of the toss-ups, it is looking like it would come down to Pennsylvania. Now let's explore a possibility. Let's say that Trump wins Pennsylvania, but loses one of the toss-ups. How does that affect this? Well, if Trump wins Pennsylvania, but Biden wins Iowa, that's not enough. He'd have to win at least Arizona. So if of the 7 toss-ups, Biden only wins 1 of them, and as long as it is any of them other than Iowa, which by itself is not enough, even if Trump won Pennsylvania and the 6 other toss-ups, Biden wins by the skin of his teeth with exactly 270 electoral votes. Let's hope it's not that close, but it could be. That is a possibility. And before I move on to talk about early voting, I want to explain what the stripes in Nebraska and Maine mean. So Nebraska and Maine are the only 2 states that do not give their total electoral college votes to their state's popular vote winner. So in the other 48 states, if you get the most votes in that state, all of their electoral college votes go to you. In Nebraska and Maine, Nebraska has 5 total and Maine has 4. So in Maine, you get 1 vote per each of the congressional districts and then 2 votes for the overall winner. So it's possible that Trump gets 1 and Biden gets 3 in Maine. And then in Nebraska, with 3 congressional districts, it's possible that Biden gets 1 vote and Trump gets 4. So that's what those stripes mean. Now let's talk about early voting. So in last week's update, there had already been 30 million people who had cast votes, whether early in person or by mail. And that was at about half of the 2016 early vote and about 20% of the total 2016 vote. We are now at 60 million votes cast. So half of the total early vote happened in just the past week. And we are now surpassed the total early vote from 2016, and we are at 45% of the total 2016 vote. So while I do think that voter turnout will be higher this year, that percentage is based on, like, if the same number of people vote, 45% of people have already voted. And we still have another week to go. There's a little, like, asterisk that goes with that, but I'll get to that in a second. So a lot of the toss-up states have had the highest early voter turnout. So I'm going to refer to my notes for some of this. I'll also put it up here. So the highest turnout has been in Texas, which is kicking ass, as they usually do in Texas, from what I hear. So assuming that the same number of people were to vote this year as in 2016, 86% of people who are going to vote in Texas have already voted. Now, like I said, I think it will be bigger, but 86%, are you kidding me, Texas? Well done. The next two highest ones are North Carolina and Nevada, which are both at 70%. And then the next three closest are Georgia at 69%, Arizona at 67%, and Florida at 66%. So fantastic. I would guess that at least another 30 million people will be voting this week, which will put us at about like 66% of the total 2016 vote having already voted as we go into Election Day, which is stunning. Not altogether surprising, because we knew it was going to be a lot heavier pre-Election Day, but still, it's a very big number. Even if there end up being more total voters this year, as is expected. So, I do also want to mention, though, that not every state has early voting up until the day before Election Day. And so that does affect some of these toss-up states. So, in fact, today is the last day of early voting in Pennsylvania, which, as we know from a few minutes ago, is a very important state. And their early vote turnout compared to other states is on the low side, which is not great. I don't know how that compares to previous early voting in Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm sure it is higher than usual, but maybe Pennsylvania is just a unusually low early vote state. I don't know that, so I can't comment on that. But comparatively, especially with other relevant states this year, it's on the low end. Saturday is the last day, and I'll also list this here. Saturday is the last day in North Carolina. Friday, skipped Friday. This Friday is the last day in Texas, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Sunday is the last day in Florida and Wisconsin. And then up through Election Day, we have Iowa, Ohio, or up through Monday, the day before Election Day, we have Iowa, Ohio, Minnesota, and Michigan. Now, the ones that I listed here are the toss-up / lean / likely Biden states. So the ones that are really going to sway things, shall we say, the ones that I've been tracking. Now, I will also throw in here this graph of the national popular vote, where Biden is up by 9.1. Now, last week, he was up by 10.3. So, take that in. But here's the thing. You can win the popular vote by 3%, maybe 4%, and still lose the Electoral College and therefore not become president. You cannot win 9% of the popular vote and still lose. So in the way that this is relevant at all, that's where it's relevant. And especially looking at the toss-up states, because I feel like 7 is quite high for a number of toss-up states. Maybe I'm wrong, but that seems quite high to me to have 7. But I would say that this number is relevant for that. So that's why I wanted to throw it in there. He does still have a 9.1 is very large for a lead in the popular vote still. So how do I want to wrap this up? What are sort of my final thoughts of 1 week before Election Day? And I will be making my final update wrap up, the day before Election Day, so next Monday, as sort of final thoughts. That is the video that will include my final predictions. But for where we are now, it's more concerning than it was before. It is not as solid for Biden as it was before, although I don't know if I would say, it was pretty solid for Biden. Now it is still likely that he will win, Biden. I do think that now that, as of last night, Trump has now placed his third Supreme Court justice, that will encourage more Democrats and likely independents to vote, and possibly also vote early. I think that issue has a definite sense of urgency to Democrats. So I think that will help the final early vote push for voting for Democrats, for turnout. I also want to include another reminder that it will take at least 2 weeks to count all of the votes. It may not take that long to find out who actually won, especially if we have Biden winning toss-up states. That will pretty much decide it. I don't know if, if they call Florida for Biden on election night, is it pretty much over at that point? Probably. I'm not saying Florida specifically over one of the other toss-ups, but I'm just saying, while it will take a long time to count the votes, it might not take as long to know who won. I hope that we find out as soon as possible. My goodness, do I hope that? But you should be prepared to not know on election night who has won, and that with this year's process of voting is the normal for this year. Otherwise, it is normal to know on election night, sometimes very late on election night, sometimes after midnight, who the winner is. That may not be the case this year, and that is okay. It sucks and it's frustrating, but it may be the case. So, especially with the now seated newly Supreme Court Justice, let's vote early, let's vote in big numbers, let's vote safely, so that we don't have to be in the position of having a Supreme Court where Trump has himself placed 3 people deciding which votes get counted and which ones don't. Let's do our best to avoid that. So vote as early as you can, vote as safely as you can, and encourage everyone you know to do the same. Good luck.